be consistent and be on video. You can do that, you can like crush probably half of your competition.
Learning from your mistakes is the most important thing.
True definition of fear is false evidence appearing real.
To make sure that I become that person.
I could be the start of your doors opening. You can't go wrong.
Simplify it.
It's pivoting.
How to get that number right.
That's my inspiration.
We just kept going.
It's just different.
I really feel like it's a God idea.
Man, you want to buy the right one.
We all really have more money than you think.
The direct to pay the most.
And to look yourself in the mirror.
And push yourself forward.
You still have the opportunity.
The biggest thing that's going to hold investors back is mindset.
First of all, it's the man. That's like what I'm looking for.
Good day, ladies and gentlemen. It's Daniel Umstead, host of the RNG radio show. I got another amazing guest on the platform, but you know what I got to do first? I got to run through the bio. So she is a trauma-informed relationship coach, speaker, podcaster, and author of With You Now, An Invitation to Heal Your Inner Child. Kandace helps individuals heal childhood wounds so that they create emotionally safe and fulfilling relationships. With degrees in psychology and communications and training in narrative-focused trauma care, she brings the experience of her own healing journey into her coaching practice. Clients describe her practice as deeply compassionate and judgment-free. She loves witnessing clients guide themselves toward healthier, more integrated lives as their transformation unfolds. She is based out of Missouri, mom, Yaya, and an advocate for normalizing, asking for help. She enjoys hiking, kayaking, writing, and listening to music and podcasts. And her favorite places to visit are whenever her grandkids are with her. So, Kandace, welcome to the RNG Radio Show. Thank you so much for being here. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good, Daniel, and just excited to be here with you. Thank you for having me on your podcast or your radio show, I should say.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's a fun story behind that. I had started it, as a podcast, thinking of it as a name. And I'm like, well, what should I call it? Because everybody's got like podcast this person's podcast. And I'm like, you know what? It's going to be a show. Maybe one of these days, somebody's just going to play a bunch of these episodes on the radio. So I'm jumping ahead.
I love it. I love it.
So with that, tell me a little bit about With You Now, An Invitation to Heal Your Inner Child. What came about that? What was the reason for it? And, how has that really impacted you?
I started looking at kind of my deeper stories in around 2019. At that time, I knew that I had had quite a bit of childhood trauma, but I didn't understand how much it was impacting my present day. Sometimes people say, don't look back. And there is a place of, dwelling in the past, not getting stuck in the past. But sometimes looking back can serve a purpose in moving forward in a different way. Mm-hmm. And I knew I needed to move forward in a different way. I was becoming more aware of my own patterns and becoming more curious of why do I keep circling back around to certain reenactment patterns, thoughts, behaviors, even belief systems about myself, about others. And I was ready to go deeper. And so I ended up attending what's called a story workshop where I experienced, I was, I think 49 at the time, and I experienced something I had never experienced before. And I had spent decades in small groups, different types of counseling therapy, which it all counted, but it wasn't getting to those deeper stories, like under the iceberg, if you will. So when we look at what we do, that's important. But transformation is going to come when we understand why we're doing what we're doing with compassion and accountability. So we have to have both, because we won't move towards help if we feel like we're being judged or shamed. But when someone can hold a compassionate space to truly see us and get to know us, because we normally are hiding those parts of ourselves that we're ashamed of or that we were shamed in. So I started that journey in 2019, and several years later, I was ready to write my story from a place of deeper understanding, because I hate it. So my memoir is about my teenage years, and I hated that teenage girl. I could hardly look at her without a sense of disgust. And when I entered into story work, that really all changed. I began to see her heart. I began to see why she did what she did. And that's when the ball really got rolling for my own healing, which doesn't always mean, this instant euphoria of, oh, I understand everything now, I'm great. It took time.
Yeah. That timing, because everybody, of course, is going to be different, 2019, as far as you pointing it out. And I'm more so asking for the audience, when should somebody like start looking at it, start looking at their patterns, start realizing that, hey, you know what, I'm circling back into this whirlwind again, but they push it off. They're like, it's probably just the job, it's probably my kids, my husband, my wife, partner, spouse, what have you. At what point should folks, really give that self-reflection to themselves to say, hey, this has got to stop, and I need to start becoming better from this. It's not going to be instant, with that euphoric, as you mentioned, but it has to start, to become better, to become stronger for this world.
Well, thankfully, this younger generation, I think, has this advantage point that they're hearing this now in real time. They're in their 20s, they're in their 30s, and they're like seeing these 40, 50, 60, 70-year-olds talking about patterns, healing from things that they kept bumping into. Everybody's wake-up call looks different. But there is this sense of I'm no longer okay with why I keep circling back around to this. So there comes a point where we're circling back around and we begin to feel the deeper pain of that. Now, sometimes people don't ever do anything about it. They literally will go to their grave not experiencing more freedom, more joy, more release of these negative patterns and emotions. And so it's different for everyone, but I love what I see happening more in the younger generation, because they're like, oh, what if because this, this is everywhere, TikTok, all the social media platforms. What if I'm able to do that sooner? Because I know that this is a thing. We unconsciously start these patterns that bring ourselves pain, that can bring others pain, that can hurt our relationships, whether that's addictions of any kind, whether it's anger issues, it's across the board on what that thing could be. But there is this sense of pain and shame that you feel internally, and you can hide that for years.
Yeah, absolutely. No, definitely. One other point, and I meant to actually ask it before that one, but I felt it was definitely top of the list there. Story work. Tell me a little bit more about that. You said you had joined a workshop in regards to story work. Can you speak on that for those that don't know, including myself?
Yes. So story work is a modality that Dan and Becky Allender from the Allender Center really started years ago. But I ended up doing that story workshop and saw like, oh, there's something different about this. So I have always kind of sought for help, because I was like, what's wrong with me? Like, even though I may be successful or appear successful, I knew internally I had a lot of fear. I had this shame that would just pop up at times, or I would be going into reenactment patterns. And so when I did that first story workshop and saw this modality called story work, it's more about slowing way down and hearing these specific stories where you developed a belief system that doesn't actually reflect the truth of who you are. Wow. And it's more nuanced. And it's more about not just the story, but our body speaks to us. So so we either go into a shutdown mode, like some depression, low energy when we're getting triggered, and sometimes we don't even know why. That's why you hear someone like, gosh, I'm so depressed and I can't even figure out why. Well, there was some type of trigger that unconsciously you just go into that pattern. And some people go more into like high anxiety, panic, fear. That's my default. But I had learned over the years how to hide it pretty good. I could get really busy and look really productive. And a lot of it was just this anxiety underneath the, the surface that was causing me to be very driven, but driven out of a need to try to prove that I'm not as bad as I felt I was.
Gotcha. Okay.
So story work is just very nuanced and looking at the whole story.
Thank you for that. You talked about triggers, and I'm really big on, what you speak out there can definitely come back to you. And I wrote it down. Gosh, I am so depressed. That trigger alone, I know, kind of creates that domino effect because people speak it. From your experience, background, and education and expertise, why? Why is it that when we speak things, causes that domino effect? And what are things that we kind of can do to offset that?
Mm-hmm. Well, we need to be truthful about what's happening in us. Like, we don't want to deny, oh, I'm starting to feel like I'm shutting down. I'm feeling that sense of depression, or I'm starting to feel amped up and I'm starting to feel that anxiety. I think what you're talking about is we can make that our identity, and we live into our identity. And so it's about slowing down and saying, here are these feelings again, and they're here for a reason. I don't like them. I don't want them. And so it's more like, what can I do here? Not this is who I am. This is how it will always be. But it's about being able to say, hey, this is how I'm feeling. And really like having a wise guide that's saying, well, let's look at that because that's not who you are. Because our trauma wants us to believe that this is who we are because of either what happened to us or what we've done.
Love that. Thank you. Thank you for that. Just help me out even a little bit better. You mentioned Wise Guide. Mindful, we're about to be talking about you. Where can folks get in contact with you, Kandace, or even follow you on social media to, have that guide in their life, such as yourself? How can folks get in contact with you?
Well, I'm on Facebook just as Kandace Cain. I am getting ready to have a specific coaching page. I'm also, honestly, Daniel, this question's making me laugh. I don't even know what all I'm on right now.
All good. Ladies and gentlemen, the links will be in the job description. But yeah, wanted to know as far as, I guess, the best way folks can get into contact with you. If there's a direct email, if they got questions right now, they just touch base with you.
Yeah, it's at Kandace G. Rather, and I'll just spell that out. KANDACEGRATHER@gmail.com. Just emailing me. But if they do come to my Facebook page, they can private message me there.
Beautiful. Awesome. Appreciate that. And then in addition to our fun subliminal messages, with you now, where can actually folks purchase the memoir or go check it out?
Yeah, it's on Amazon. And then I also have a Kindle version and I am on Audible. So I recorded my memoir.
Nice. Awesome. Beautiful. Beautiful. And then the folks that do reach out, because of course we don't want the world coming to you because everybody has that different levels and what they're looking for. Who is that person that should be reaching out to you via email? That typical client that you've dealt with in the past, or maybe even most recently? Who's that avatar, if you will,
Yeah, I work with individuals and couples, and there's usually some type of relationship issue that's causing them pain, or something that they're kind of waking up and saying, childhood trauma is being talked about more and more. And I'm thankful for that, because until we get to the root, we're going to, we may be able to have these seasons that were kind of not in the pattern or in those trauma responses. But until we get to the root, they're going to circle back around. Right. And so it's usually people that there's some level of this thing keeps circling back around. And what does this mean for me? Does this mean I'm deeply flawed? I'm bad? There's something so wrong with me that I can't transform? Or is there something more going on? And I love, love, love helping people see, oh, there's something more going on. So who you were created to be, your design, is that you are so deeply loved, and you have all the resources that you need. And I help people, tap into those resources to experience more freedom. I never say perfection, but I've said this on a few other podcasts. I had this question one day, and I thought to myself, God, how free can I be? How free can I be on this side? And that's a question that I think it's good for us to ask. Is there more freedom for me, or is this just it? And I always think there's more freedom.
Yes. Oh no, like I said, I always love doing this because I personally get inspired moving forward, and it's usually one or two things. Right now, it's particularly half, Kandace. So thank you, because throughout the 9 to 5, the daily works, family, and such, it's like, is there more to life? Of course there is, but the free question, I think, goes a long way, because people feel like, well, I can't get out of this job, or I'm stuck in this relationship that I'm in right now. So I think it's extremely helpful, to have that as that self-question, how much more free can you be? And of course, going to the main source, and asking that, being biased as I should be. What's a piece of advice that you typically will give to clients or those that, are just facing the childhood trauma? What's one thing you usually tell them to start with, outside of, checking out the patterns and going through the emotions? What's one thing that you usually lay on their heart?
Slowing down and noticing what's really happening in your body, your physical body, being curious about it instead of just looking at it as normal. If you're moving into depression a lot, or if you're moving into anxiety a lot, let's start with just slowing down and noticing, ooh, I'm feeling this, maybe journaling it. And then sometimes we're like, ooh, this started happening after I smelled something. I mean, it can be a smell even, or somebody said something, or it's just different for everybody. But you slow down and like, oh, there's that feeling again. There's that feeling that I'm too much. There's that feeling that I'm not enough that gives me anxiety. And until we slow down and we really understand the story behind it, we react. We don't respond with the choices that we want to make and who we truly are. We will just react, which means that we usually hurt ourselves and possibly somebody else.
I'm taking notes, ladies and gentlemen, so I hope that y'all are too. Thank you. Well, Kandace, as we're wrapping up here, is there anything that you want to leave for the audience, as far as a going away present if they don't get in contact with you, or something that they can hold to for the rest of their lives?
Yeah, I want to say, a lot of people have what we call an inner critic. And that voice, right, that is playing that soundtrack. And I want to leave the audience with, there is a way to quiet that noise and to really slow down and say, what is the truth underneath what's happening here? And Daniel, I think you and I both believe you shall know the truth, and the truth will set you free.
Hallelujah.
So we've got to get to the truth. So there's a lot of people walking around. Maybe some of them are in a homeless shelter or sleeping under a bridge. They have a soundtrack. Maybe it's a business executive that nobody sees what's really going on in the home. They have a soundtrack. And this is what we do. We slow down so that we can get to the truth of what's going on in such a deeply compassionate way, and to hold ourselves accountable for how we want to be and who we want to be.
Again, it's mic drop after mic drop after mic drop. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Get the word out. I'm hoping that folks are stopping this right now, going back, replaying it. There's healing, just going on in me personally, that this has just helped me alone. So Kandace, thank you so much. Really appreciate you being here on the RNG radio show. And one more time, if you can provide to us where folks can get in contact with you and or follow you on social media.
Yeah, Kandace Cain on all the social media things. Somebody else is setting all that up for me. And then Kandace G. Rather at gmail.com. And yeah, and private message me on Facebook, and I always respond within 24 hours.
Beautiful. Awesome. Thank you so much, Kandace. For those who are watching, be sure to subscribe to the RNG Radio Show. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, and a few other radio stations as well, links. So thank you for tuning in. And y'all know my tagline, be blessed, my fellow millionaires. Talk soon.
Thank you for tuning in to the RNG Radio Show. Be sure to like and subscribe for more episodes and future content. If you'd like to learn more, visit us at danielumstead.com. Stay blessed, my fellow millionaires.